Hello friends, welcome back to another What's for Dinner video. Today I have 5 new dinner recipes that are perfect for a easy, busy weeknight. All of these meals are packed with comfort feelings, so they are great if you have a large family with kids, and they all come together fairly quick too, so if you are crunched for time, these are great recipes to do. If you are looking for the recipe cards to screenshot for each of these meals, you can find them at the very end of the video. They are all there for you. I'm starting out today's video with chicken, bacon, and ranch bowls. These bowls are packed with vegetables. So if that is something that you think that your family is missing, these are a great addition to your weekly meal plan. These bowls are really versatile too, so you can kind of use whatever vegetables that you and your family like. Today I am using Brussels sprouts, zucchini, onion, and sweet potatoes. If you have pickier eaters that don't necessarily like vegetables, you can obviously switch those out to ones that they will eat, but also there are plenty of other things in this dish that kind of hide the fact that it's mostly vegetables. My 5-year-old Theo, he can be kind of a pickier eater sometimes, and he definitely lives off of snacks, but he taste tested this recipe without knowing what it was. I like to do that where I don't really tell them, so then they can't have an opinion before they taste it. So I didn't tell him what it was, and he actually really liked it, and then had an entire helping for lunch. On the recipe card, it will call for raw chicken that's cut up in bite-sized pieces. However, I had leftover chicken that I had deboned from a previous night, so I wanted to go ahead and use that. So that is what I'm using in this recipe. I also roasted some of the vegetables ahead of time, like the sweet potatoes, because they can take a little longer. So I did roast those ahead of time. That way I can kind of throw them all into this bowl, and then you drizzle it with oil and seasonings and throw it all in the oven at the same time. And that way they can all cook together at the same time. I am seasoning it quickly with just some onion powder, garlic powder, Italian seasoning, and a little bit of salt and pepper. I already went ahead and drizzled some olive oil on top, and then I'll mix it up before putting it on a baking dish to cook. While I was mixing all of this together and getting it all in the bowl, I had the bacon cooking in the oven to get it nice and crispy. So I just cut it up in little pieces and put it actually in the baking dish that I'm going to bake this all in, so I didn't have to dirty any more dishes. And on top of that, bacon creates a grease, and it greased the bottom of the pan, so which you'll have to do anyway if you don't do it like that. If you are someone that likes to prep their meals ahead of time, I know that we do that sometimes, and we have friends that they'll like to spend like a day on the weekend prepping all their meals for the week. This dish will be really, really good for that. It heats up really well, and it makes quite a bit, so you can definitely put them in little personal containers and have it for multiple days during the week. I went ahead when the bacon was done and scraped it all off the bottom and mixed it in the bowl with the rest of the ingredients. That way I knew that it wasn't just all clumped up in one spot or hard to get off the bottom of this pan. So I'm going to just scoop it up, put it in the bowl, I'll mix it all together, and then I'll put everything from the bowl into the baking dish that's already greased and put it in the oven. This is how it turned out. You can, of course, add cheese or really any variations of things that you would like. You can do beef instead of chicken. I love how versatile this dish is. And then if you're wanting to, I know my kids, they drizzled a little bit of ranch over the top and they loved this. This next meal has been in my family for over 10 years. I have been making this meal. It actually came from my mother-in-law. I might have a slightly different variation of the recipe on the card from what it originally was, but it's for the most part about the same, and it is such a crowd pleaser. This is one of my family's favorite recipes, and if we're going to have a big crowd of people over or anybody over for dinner, this is usually what I make because everybody really, really loves these. These are chicken enchiladas, and they are made with like a cream sauce. So if you are going to have family over or anything like that and they like enchiladas, this is a really great meal to do. If I'm making these for just my family, I don't always make sides for these. A lot of times, if it's just us, it makes such a huge portion that I'll just serve these with some lettuce, sour cream, hot sauce, or salsa, just some veggies chopped up like tomatoes, onions, or cilantro, cucumbers. You get the idea. But I don't always serve these with a side. However, if we are having people over, a lot of times I'll serve it with rice and beans as well. So I started off by roasting chicken. I don't usually buy boneless chicken. I usually have like the leg and thigh quarters because we're a larger family and we're doing our groceries on a budget. So I roasted a couple of the leg and thigh quarters ahead of time, and then I let them cool, debone them. You need about 4 cups of cooked and shredded chicken. I added the chicken to the bowl that you see here, and then you'll add in half a packet of taco seasoning, a small can of green diced chilies. I do not use the hot ones, but if you and your family like spicier things, you can always add the hot stuff. We do like our stuff spicier, but I choose to kind of opt out of the spicy chilies, and instead we'll add hot sauce or salsa or something at the end. That way, if someone is not wanting it spicy, then they don't have to have it spicy. So you'll do the 1 small can of diced green chilies, and then a half of a can of cream of chicken, a half of a cup of sour cream, and like 1 cup of shredded cheese. And I always say like 1 cup of shredded cheese because who really measures shredded cheese? I don't. So, just measure with your heart. After you have that all mixed up, then I'll take, and you can do this in a separate bowl. I don't like to dirty dishes, so I just did it in the can. You'll put in about 1/4 of a cup of milk into the rest of the cream of chicken. And then I did not have any taco seasoning. I ran out, so I'm just putting in spices like cumin and garlic and chili powder, stuff like that, to make my own taco seasoning. You'll put the rest of the taco seasoning pack, if you have it, into the can with the milk and cream of chicken, and then stir, and that creates like a cream sauce instead of the red enchilada sauce. Again, if you cannot follow along with the recipes because they go too fast or you need to screenshot it or whatever it may be, The recipes are all at the end of the video, so you can absolutely just screenshot those for later. I usually pour just a little bit of the cream sauce into the bottom of the pan. That way it kind of helps with sticking a little bit. Just a very thin layer will do. You'll then fill the enchiladas with a couple of spoonfuls of the chicken mixture, and then you'll roll them up, and I leave the ends open for these, and then you will put the seam side of the tortilla down in the dish. I think I forgot to mention earlier, when you're doing the chicken mixture, and I don't believe it's on the recipe card either, you can put in, like sometimes I'll want to put in green peppers or red peppers or onions into the chicken mixture. So sometimes I'll mix it up, sometimes I won't. This time I did not do peppers, but I did dice up an onion. So if that is something that you wanted to add, you can definitely do that and just chop them up really small and put them in with the chicken mixture and mix it up with all that. When you're rolling up the enchiladas and putting them in the baking dish, I pack them in there pretty good, but I make sure that I don't overlap them in any way. That way, when you're cutting them out to serve, you're getting one whole enchilada and not cutting into others. I still had some ingredients left over after I filled that one baking dish, so I went ahead and I got a smaller baking dish to finish out the rest of them. I believe it only did 3 more. But my husband, he likes bringing these to work, and my kids, they love eating them for lunch. Like I said, this is a huge crowd pleaser. This is, if I had to pick one meal to share with other people, this would definitely be it. So whenever I'm making these, I usually make sure that I use all the ingredients because it definitely all gets eaten. Once you get them all rolled up and in the baking dishes, you'll pour the cream sauce on top of them and then top with cheese and put in the oven to bake. Here's how they all turned out. If you like them a little crispier, you can put them under the broiler for a couple of minutes. That's usually what I like to do to brown the cheese a little bit more, and then just top with whatever toppings you like. I'm moving on to making a super simple dinner. I don't even have a recipe card for this because it's really self-explanatory and you can make it however you would like, but I am making baked pork chops and a baked potato and then a vegetable. This is something that I like doing at least once a week just because there's really not a lot of thought behind it and it comes together so quickly. I decided to sear the pork chops before I put them in the oven. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just getting 2 pans heated up with butter and oil, and then I will put the pork in it, sear them a little bit on each side, and then put them in the oven. We were kind of at the end of our groceries whenever I was making this meal, so we didn't really have enough of each kind of pork, but we had 2 different kinds. So these were pork steaks that I put in, and then I had, I think, only 2, possibly 3, smaller pork chops. So I just put those in and I seasoned them all the same. I have a pork seasoning that I like to use. It's a little sweeter, and then I usually love to use paprika on pork. I don't know what it is, but it is one of the ingredients that I don't usually skip anymore because it really just adds that extra flavor to pork. This is that seasoning that I was mentioning. It is a pineapple sriracha. It's a little sweet, a tiny bit spicy, but really nothing too overwhelming. My 5-year-old, he does not really like spice, and so and he loved these. So it's not too spicy. And I believe you can find these at most places. I found this one at Walmart. I have the pans really, really hot, so they don't take very long on either side, just a couple of minutes on both sides before you pop them in the oven. I usually do this kind of a meal with chicken, and like I said, I usually buy the leg and thigh quarters. So I will take like 2 or 3, depending on the size, and put them in one of these cast iron pans and season them, put a little bit of oil and butter on them, and then put them in the oven. And that is a meal. I'll shred it up and serve it with a vegetable, a potato, or rice. So super, super easy. And on those busy nights, that's kind of what you need. My son and husband wanted some deviled eggs, so I am boiling some eggs for that. And then I don't always make vegetables like this, but this is one of my family's favorite ways to make vegetables. I buy those large bags of, it's usually either broccoli or green beans at Sam's Club, just the frozen ones, but they come with several of these little bags. So tonight I wanted to do a large portion. My family of 6 can actually get away with just 1 bag of these, but since I wanted a larger portion of vegetables, I went ahead and did 2 bags of the frozen broccoli, and I add it to a pan of a tiny bit of oil, and then I'll season it with salt and pepper and garlic powder, Italian seasoning, and then I will put a little bit of soy sauce on it too, right before I put the lid on. But you kind of char them a little bit in all these ingredients, stir it up, and then you add a little bit of soy sauce and you put the lid on and it steams them. It is so, so good to make them this way. And my family, they love their vegetables like this. Like I said, the green beans is usually the favorite, but the last couple of times I went to Sam's Club, they only have these broccoli packages. So that's what I've been getting, and they are still just as good. And there you have it. Such an easy weeknight dinner, and it's so versatile. You can switch up the meat or vegetables. You could do potato or rice. Dinner doesn't always have to be a whole big production. Something very simple like this is always a really great meal too. Okay, so for this next meal, this is tater tot casserole, and you will have to let me know in the comments below if this is something that you make or if this is kind of a southern meal. I'm starting to think it's a southern meal. I had this one other time when we lived up in the Chicago area, probably like over 10 years ago, and I actually did not like this. However, I don't know if my taste just grew or if I'm making it differently now. I'm not quite sure, but this is an awesome recipe for kids. They love it, and it probably has something to do with the tater tots. But everyone eats this dish down here, and this was basically unheard of up in the Chicago area. So, like I said, if you are from the South or wherever you're from, do you have this? I'm kind of running an experiment and I want to see if this is pretty much just a Southern meal. If you read the recipe card and you're looking at this like I'm not following directions, that's really nothing new, but I'm not. I am kind of trying to beef it up a little, so I usually add a vegetable. Again, I only had some broccoli and a mixed vegetable. I like doing green beans a lot, and that is what the recipe will call for. However, I did not have that. It also will only say to do 1 can of cream of mushroom soup. I think I added some milk. I wouldn't really suggest doing that. It made it a little soupier than usual. Still, it was very, very good. But yeah, I kind of deviated a little bit from the normal recipe because I was trying to beef it up just a little bit more to feed an extra person. This recipe is another recipe that is really great for kids because if they don't love eating vegetables, which a lot of kids kind of fight you on, this is a really great recipe because you can kind of hide them in the casserole. So I did a small bag of broccoli and a small bag, oh no, it wasn't small, it was a normal bag of mixed vegetables. You can add whatever kind of vegetables you want. Green beans are usually what we do, and they're very good. But kids don't notice them as much because they have a ton of other ingredients with them, and they're baked in cheese, and they have tater tots on the top. So this is a really great recipe if you want to put more vegetables on your kids' plate. Now, the key to part of this where you don't want the tater tots to get soggy is you kind of want to line them up in one layer. You don't have to be fancy with it. A ton of these recipes online, they're like perfectly lined up in these beautiful rows, and I have a million kids. I'm not going to sit here and do that. However, I do make sure that they're pretty much just in one row, that way that they all get cooked and they all can kind of crisp up and turn golden brown. This is how it turns out, and even though there are vegetables in there, I usually always serve this with some type of steamed vegetable on the side. For this last recipe, this is a Crockpot recipe. You could definitely do it on the stove if you're wanting something quick, but I always do this on the Crockpot, and this is a super easy recipe. I can't even stress that enough. This is cheesy potato and sausage casserole. I found this recipe and started making it kind of out of necessity because I made it first when I was really, really sick with COVID. This was when COVID was kind of running rampant through the United States, and um, I was one of the sickest in our family. I was stuck in bed for weeks, but I needed to kind of cook some meals towards the end. And this was a meal that it was so easy that I just threw in the crock pot, and we've kind of made it ever since, just when I need something super easy. So I found it out of necessity, and it's kind of something that we've continued to make. You can serve this with a salad. You can serve this with a steamed vegetable. It has very minimal ingredients, and it's just an overall pretty good and easy recipe. I like to make it as easy as possible, so instead of cutting up like fresh potatoes or using hash browns, I just use 3 cans of diced potatoes. I put them in the crock pot. I dice up a small white onion. I will add in either cream of mushroom or cream of chicken. It really doesn't matter. The recipe says for cream of mushroom. I think I used cream of chicken. Um, Half a cup of sour cream. You can season it with whatever seasoning you love, and salt and pepper to taste. And then it says kielbasa, which I have done that. However, I had just this smoked sausage in our fridge, so I'm chopping that up. And as I was finishing chopping it up, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make them a little smaller. So instead of like little sausage coins, I cut them in half, and you just throw that all in, give it a good mix, and put it in the crock pot for like, I think I did it on high because I was making this a little later, for 4 hours. You can do it on low for 6 hours. If you're leaving for like work or something for the day and you want to put this in the crock pot, I do suggest adding like a little milk or some broth so it can not burn, because it does have cheese in it. So I always get nervous about that. But anyway, it just goes in the crock pot, and it is such an easy meal. I also will top with some green onions to kind of give it some color. But that is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and cooking with me today. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you would like to follow along for more family-friendly, budget-friendlier meals. If you're wanting any of these recipe cards, you can find them at the very end of the video. But I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!